So first, I want to thank you for being interested in this topic, teaching a growth mindset for a successful future. I'm excited to present this topic because I think it's great information for our children as well as our parents and educators. So I hope that you come away with a great way to implement the things that we're going to be discussing today. So first, my name is Leslie Hansen. I am a parent consultant here at the Utah Parent Center. I've only been with the Utah Parent Center for a short time, but I've been advocating for my special needs son for 11 years now. The one thing that I've learned during that time is to not feel alone on this journey. Excuse me. At the Utah Parent Center, we are all parents. So each one of us has a, each one of us has a child in special education. So we understand from the parent's perspective what it's like to be working with special education teams. We do one-on-one consultations and we present workshops throughout the state. And all of our services are free. So the Utah Parent Center, it is a statewide nonprofit organization, and we help parents and families of special needs children. So it's also my privilege to co-present with one of my colleagues, Stephanie Roach, and I'll have her introduce herself now.
Hi everybody, I am Stephanie Roach and I've been with the Utah Parent Center for about 7 years now, which is hard to believe, it's gone by so quickly. I am the mother of 2 children with special needs. Both of them have IEPs. One of them is 19 and in a post-high program, and the other is 16 and going to be a sophomore next year. So we've had quite a lot of experience in special education, but this opportunity to help parents navigate and work through special education is my passion, and I feel incredibly lucky to be able to be a part of this organization and sharing information and knowledge and helping people through this so we can all understand this and work through this together. So I appreciate the opportunity to present this information to you today.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next slide. So we're going to be watching a video about Mojo. So pay attention to the questions posed at the end of this video, as this is what we will be discussing today.
Chapter 1. Mojo discovers a secret about his brain. A secret that will change the way he looks at the world forever. Our story begins with Mojo, a friendly monster who loved school, especially math. Until one day, when something terrible happened. The math problems got harder. Nothing made sense anymore. Mojo had a devastating thought. He just wasn't smart enough for school. It seemed the only reasonable thing to do was pack his things and leave forever. Just then, he heard his friend Katie laughing. "Mojo, you can't just give up," she said. "I have no choice, Katie," said Mojo. "You're either born smart or you're not. And I realize today that I'm not." "Mojo, that's not how it works," said Katie. "Anyone can be smart. You just have to work at it." "Psh, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard," said Mojo. "It's not ridiculous, it's science," said Katie. "Neuroscientists studied the brain for years and discovered an incredible secret, that your brain is like a muscle. When you try challenging things, like those hard math problems, you're giving your brain the exercise it needs to get stronger, which makes you smarter." "Ooh, is that really true?" said Mojo. "Of course," said Katie. "It's like how when you were a baby, you didn't know how to talk. But you kept trying, exercising your brain, until one day you could." Mojo! Mojo couldn't believe what he was hearing. If your brain was really like a muscle, did that mean anyone could become smarter? Even him? He turned to ask Katie, but just then, she had to be off to her next class. But maybe you can answer Mojo's question. What do you think? Can Mojo become smarter? What about you? Now that's an interesting question indeed.
Today we'll introduce the concept of growth mindset. And this concept was pioneered by a woman by the name of Carol Dweck. She's a psychologist and the author of Mindset, the New Psychology of Success. So in Dweck's research, she basically says that our brains are a muscle that can be exercised. And once they're exercised, they become stronger, and therefore we become smarter. So we'll talk about the science behind the growth mindset and how we can teach this to our children. Next slide, please. How we can teach this to our children, and then also practical ways to encourage this growth mindset at home. Next slide. So we all have a choice of what our beliefs are when it comes to our brains. So do you believe that your intelligence is something very basic about you that you can't change very much? Do you believe that you can learn new things, but you can't really change how intelligent you are? Or no matter how much intelligence you have, you can always change it quite a bit. And lastly, do you believe that you can always substantially change how intelligent you are? Next slide. So you have a choice. Mindsets are just beliefs. They're powerful beliefs, but there's something in your mind and you can change your mind. And I really like that quote from Carol Dweck. Because it puts it back on us as individuals. So we really are what we believe. And hopefully by the end of this hour, you'll be able to feel more confident to answer the questions posed in our video. Will you believe that Mojo can become smarter? Will you believe that you or your child can become smarter? Next slide. So brain plasticity. Recent advances in neuroscience have shown us that the brain is far more malleable than we ever knew. Research on brain plasticity has shown the connectivity between neurons can change with our experiences. So with practice, neural networks grow new connections and strengthen existing ones. And they can even build the insulation that speeds transmission of impulses. These neuroscientific discoveries have shown us that we can increase our neural growth by the actions we take, such as using good strategies, asking questions, practicing, following good nutrition and sleep habits. Next slide. In a growth mindset, people believe that their most basic abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. Brains and talent are just the starting point. This view creates a level of learning and a resilience that is essential for great accomplishment. And that again was by Carol Dweck. For those who embrace growth mindsets, the belief that they can learn more or become smarter if they work hard and persevere, have greater success in academics. Have you ever encountered someone with a growth mindset? If you have, you probably know it. They're hardworking, positive individuals who just never give up. Next slide. So this is a great slide to show the two mindsets side by side. And to explain this, I'm going to get a little help from a man by the name of Peter Fisk, who is a global thought leader and an expert in business. So in the fixed mindset, it hampers success and it must be avoided in areas where we seek to achieve. This mindset also leads us to avoid failure at all costs. In a fixed mindset, our belief of intelligence is static. This can result in avoiding challenges, giving up easily when faced with obstacles, and not quite giving 100% effort. If we see life through a growth mindset, a fixed mindset, we become trapped like black and white roles of success or failure. We take easier classes in school so we can avoid
not getting that A.
We avoid social interactions. We blame others and dodge confrontation. We may even reject change, and really we just play it safe. But in the growth mindset, believing that our qualities can be cultivated leads to different fundamental thoughts and actions. The mindset changes the implication of failure from unworthy to opportunity. Failure becomes a minor setback and a chance to learn. Unlike the fixed mindset, we believe intelligence can be developed, leading us to want to learn. A desire for learning often results in embracing challenges, working through obstacles, and valuing effort. We may also even learn from criticism, and we might find inspiration in the success of others. If you have a growth mindset, you live in a world full of potential. You embrace your challenges, you value your effort, and we know the role of it in achievement. We also may listen to opposing viewpoints. We face our fears. We compromise when necessary. We also take responsibility, and we like change. At the age of 3.5 or 4, children are able to evaluate themselves, excuse me, based on their mistakes or their criticisms. So this is also the age where professionals are now seeing evidence of a fixed mindset. A collaboration with researchers from the University of Chicago videotaped mother and toddler interactions. They found that the mothers who praised the process of their children more than the outcome had a growth mindset and a desire for change. So those children, even 5 years later, were accepting challenges and moving forward through them very easily. So as we can see, the process starts very early in our children. Next slide. But what does this look like in everyday dialogue? This is a great thing to work on at home, and we have some handouts that will help you try to implement this in your home. But a fixed mindset might sound like, what will others think? Should I just give up? This is too much. But a growth mindset, you would make comments like, this is hard, but what strategies can I use instead? Or what can I learn from this? And you recognize that your effort is paying off. Next slide. So there's been a lot of misconceptions about what a growth mindset is, and there are two very common ones that we're going to discuss on this slide. And one of them is praise only the effort and not the outcome. So instead, we should be praising the effort that led to the outcome or the progress. So we know it's just not effort, but it's also strategy. So we need to support our children in finding another strategy if one fails. Children need to know that if they're stuck, they just don't need effort. They also need to keep working hard towards accomplishing whatever they've set out to do. The second one is protecting your child from failure. So a lot of times people might do this by just focusing on the ability of the child. But instead, we should react to the failure as though it is something that we can learn from. For instance, what is it teaching us? Or where should we go next? Or how can we learn this better? I like the example of Steve Jobs. He was initially let go from Apple, and he did not let this define his future. So he learned from his experiences, he started new businesses, and eventually he returned to Apple to make it what it was and is today. His failure gave him motivation to keep moving forward. Next slide. So the process of developing a growth mindset This represents all the components of higher achievement, but you can't really have one of these without the other. So each component of this leads to that end result, which is higher achievement. So I can get smarter. Children who believe this may have a different perspective on learning. They may tie their effort and improvement together to recognize their goals or whatever strategies they may have to change. Effort makes me stronger. I like the quote by a man named Tom Coleman. He's an English bodybuilder and an ultimate sports nutrition athlete. He said, quote, "Don't decrease the goal, increase the effort. Be thankful for hard times, for they have made you." So the success you find from effort is built over time. It just doesn't come overnight. And each time we fail and we don't give up and we continue to make that effort, we move forward. And this matters because in the end, we will find that success. Learning is my goal. This thought is important when thinking about achievement. The growth mindset tells us that we may have setbacks, but learning from them and changing our strategies will lead to success. Always stick with what you envisioned and believe in the process. The next one, I'd spend more time and work harder. Working hard at things gives you the opportunity to understand its true value. So even when you have setbacks, you can build good qualities along the way. So no athlete ever deserved a medal without years of training. And the same thing applies to our lives as well. Again, we can't expect something overnight, but little by little, we work and we make that effort, we can achieve our higher goals and more success. So it's not a strategic action. It's only strategic actions in the right direction that help produce the result of success. If it was easy, everybody would be successful. Stephanie, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Leslie. I appreciate that. And I think we've heard some fantastic information. I want to talk a little bit about a new concept and then how we can work on teaching these things with our family. So next slide, please. I'd like to talk about the power of yet. And I want you to think about that word yet and what that might mean to you. It's a pretty powerful word, and the power of yet is a pretty powerful phrase. I want to discuss what it means to say, I can't do this. That means that you've decided that you have a fixed mindset, that you're not going to be able to do something. I don't understand this. That's a phrase that has your mind thinking that, yeah, I'm not going to be able to get it. But what if we add the word yet to those phrases? I can't do this yet. I'm not good at this yet. I don't understand this yet. This doesn't work yet. I don't know the answer yet. That word turns these phrases around from a negative thought, a fixed mindset that this is not something that I'm capable of doing, to, wow, maybe I can't do it now, but I have unlimited potential. And if I can't do it now, it's because I can't do it yet. Next slide, please. This is a short video. It's again by Carol Dweck, whose research on growth mindsets is astounding. It's very powerful, wonderful research. And she has this full video on YouTube. We're going to watch just about 5 minutes of it, but it does go on for about 10 minutes. So if you wanted to look that up on YouTube, you can watch the full thing. But this explains what that word yet means and how we can teach that to our children and actually to ourselves as well.
Today, I want to tell you about the power of yet. I learned in high school in Chicago, where students had to pass 84 units to graduate. And if they didn't pass, they got the grade not yet. I thought, isn't that wonderful? Because if you fail, you're nowhere. But if you get the grade not yet, you're on a learning curve. Not yet gave them a path into the future. And not yet also helped me understand a critical experience early in my career. To figure out how kids coped with challenge, I gave 10-year-olds some problems that were a little too difficult for them. Some of them reacted in a shockingly positive way. They said things like, "I love a challenge," or "I was hoping this would be informative." They understood that their abilities could grow through their hard work. They had what I call a growth mindset. But other children, for them it was tragic, catastrophic. From their more fixed mindset perspective, their core intelligence had been tested and devastated. Instead of the power of yet, they were gripped by the tyranny of now. So, what did they do next? In one study, after a failure on a test, they said they'd cheat next time instead of study more. In another study, they found someone who did worse than they did so they could feel better. And in many studies, we found they run from difficulty. Let's look at how that looks in the brain. Mojo and his colleagues measured from the brain as kids encountered errors. Processing the error shows up in red. If you look at the fixed mindset brain on the left, nothing is happening. But if you look at the growth mindset brain on the right, it's on fire with yet. They're processing the error deeply, learning from it, and correcting it. So, how are we raising our kids? Are we raising them for now or for yet? Are they focused on the next A or test score instead of dreaming big, instead of thinking about what they want to be and how they want to contribute to society? And if they are too focused on A's and test scores, are they going to carry this with them into the future? Maybe because many employers are coming to me and saying, we've already created a generation of young workers who can't get through the day without an award. So, what can we do? How can we build that bridge to yet? First, we can praise wisely. Our research shows that when we praise kids for the process they engage in, their hard work, their strategies, their focus, their perseverance, they learn that challenge seeking, they learn that resilience. Praising talent, praising intelligence makes them vulnerable. There are other ways of rewarding yet. We teamed up with game scientists at the University of Washington to create a math game, Brain Points. The typical math game rewards right answers right now, but not brain points. We rewarded process and the learning curve, so effort, strategy, and progress. The Brain Points game created more sustained learning and greater perseverance than the standard game. And just the words yet and not yet after a student has a setback, we're finding creates greater confidence and greater persistence. We also can change students' mindsets directly. In one study, we taught students that every time they pushed out of their comfort zone to learn something really, really hard and they stuck to it, the neurons in their brain could form new, stronger connections, and over time, they could become smarter.
I love what Carol had to say about how to teach our children the power of yet and the value of that yet. Some of the things that really stood out to me were where she said to praise wisely. She mentioned several times that we should be praising the process that they're going through and also talking about the outcome. It's okay to talk about a failure. It's okay to say that didn't work, because we can talk about what we can do next, how we can change our process, learn from what we didn't go right, and learn how to get to our next end, which may not be a success as well. It may be another failure and another attempt, but we keep working on that process. Instead of praising talent and intelligence, which leaves kids vulnerable, we praise their effort and their willingness to keep trying and keep working toward a new outcome and to not be afraid of that failure. So how can we continue to teach this growth mindset at home? How can we help our kids learn to be resilient and have that growth mindset? Next slide, please. I am a very visual learner. I learn a lot better rather than just hearing something if I can see and have a chance to practice what it is that I'm learning. So some of these ideas that we have are ways that you can show visual reminders to your families and your children and yourself and even your spouse around the home. One of the things that we can do is print up some of these slides, some of the pictures from the handouts that were sent out to you, and put them in prominent places around your home. So for example, in my house, that would probably be on the Xbox or on the TV. Or it could be maybe on your refrigerator, on the back of your bathroom door, anytime where there might be an opportunity for your child to be able to review some of these ideas and strategies. And you can also change them frequently so that they don't get used to having the same thing over and over and will read something new. But some of these are really exciting and positive and really great ideas. So I wanted to go through what is on these two brains. And as I'm reading through these, I want you to think about what maybe some of your hangups are and where maybe you might have a problem with a growth mindset and could learn a new strategy to, instead of being fixed, to have that growth mindset. I'm going to start with the gray brain. First is failure is the limit of my abilities. I'm either good at it or I'm not. My abilities are unchanging. I don't like to be challenged. I can either do it or I can't. My potential is predetermined. When I'm frustrated, I give up. Feedback and criticism are personal. I stick to what I know. And as I read through those, there's one for me personally that really stands out that's a difficulty for me. Feedback and criticism are personal. That is my idea. I want feedback, I ask for feedback, and then when I get feedback that may not be what I want to hear, it feels critical and it feels personal, and I get stuck in my fixed mindset. So that's definitely one that I could work on. We can also look at what those phrases would look like in a growth mindset. Failure is an opportunity to grow. It's not a limit of my abilities, it's an opportunity to grow. I can learn to do anything I want. Challenges help me to grow. My effort and attitude determine my abilities. Feedback is constructive. I'm inspired by the success of others. I like to try new things. So instead of being worried about feedback being critical or me taking that personally, I can think feedback is constructive and use that feedback to develop a new process and work on a new outcome. So if you can leave these pictures around the house, it'll give your kids and yourself an opportunity to read what the fixed mindsets are and to think about how you could switch them into a growth mindset. Next slide. Another handout, another visual that you could place around your home are these two posters that talk about having a growth mindset and give positive phrases. I learn new things every day. Creative solutions aren't always easy. I get stronger every day. And then a quote that I think is so critical. All things are difficult before they are easy. Next slide, please. We can also have the opportunity to use some of these phrases to have a conversation and a discussion with our children, especially if they are struggling to have a growth mindset. These questions to ask encourage deep thought and emphasize the fact that we are looking at the process and how we can change that process to have a different outcome. So if you think about some of these questions, they really do encourage a dialogue, and it's good to maybe set aside some time to have that deep conversation with your child, because the more this is practiced, the better it is and the easier it becomes. So think about, what made you think hard today? Don't shy away from the things that are hard. Don't shy away from what your child may not want to deal with, but ask them, what was hard today? We have a quote or a phrase that we say around our home all the time: I can do hard things. And it is okay for our kids to know that things are hard and that we can still work on them anyway. What else do you want to learn? What do you want to learn from this experience? If it was too easy, how can you make it more challenging? Because maybe when we're working on things and setting goals for ourselves, we set goals that are not very challenging because we don't want to fail. But we can ask our kids, you know, was that a little bit too easy for you? How could you make that a little bit harder? So we challenge ourselves, because it's not really until we step out of that comfort zone, really leave that comfort box, that we have some good understanding and some good growth and learning. Next slide, please. We can also read about a growth mindset, and we can do this individually or as a family. This handout, which is also included in your packet, has a list of books that really do explain what a growth mindset is, and they are kind of grouped according to age. So you can start as young as just an infant, reading to them, and some of these books may be books you've already read to your kids and not even realize that they do emphasize that growth mindset. But there are lots and lots of them going up to adulthood. One of the books by Carol Dweck is called Mindset, and that's where a lot of this workshop comes from, but it has some fantastic ideas and goes into a lot more depth. Another one is called Grit, and I don't know if any of you were involved with the book study that we did in conjunction with the Utah State Board of Education, but we did review that book, and that book also really emphasizes the importance of having a growth mindset. One of the books I wanted to bring to your attention is book number 24, and it's called Bubblegum Brain. So this book is really fun. It has some images that are really interesting. My 16-year-old son was very intrigued by them, but I would suggest maybe taking a look. That you can find it in an online bookstore. It may be available through your local library, and think about reading that one together as a family, that talks about how your brain really is elastic like bubblegum, and it can grow and learn and progress and is not going to be stuck the way it is right now. Next slide, please. We can also have a family movie night. This is a list of a lot of really great family movies. Most of them, a lot of them you've probably already seen. A lot of Disney movies have a lot of information about a growth mindset. There are some for older kids as well. The Lord of the Rings, The Karate Kid, The Blind Side. A lot of these movies really do emphasize what this power is and how we can use it in our families. So what I would suggest is having a conversation before you start the movie and ask them to look at how the characters show a growth mindset, and then having a conversation afterward to emphasize what they saw and what portions of that movie were really impactful to them. Next slide, please. We can also review podcasts with our families. I don't know about you, but we spend, well, not as much lately, but up until a couple of months ago, we spent a lot of time in the car traveling from here to there. And instead of listening to my kids argue or listening to Disney songs for the millionth time, which are helpful. I love Disney songs, don't get me wrong, but we can pop on a podcast and listen to ways that we can develop a growth mindset. And some of these are really fantastic little podcasts to listen to as a family and have that discussion. Next slide, please. Another thing that we can do to teach our kids a growth mindset is to problem solve with them. When our kids are struggling, it can be challenging. They can shut down. They can really not want to continue to progress and try things in a different way. So having conversations and problem solving can be very impactful. You can help them to develop their own strategy and to learn how to persevere through their challenges. Working directly through these questions on either side, both of these handouts have fantastic information. The one on the right may be a little bit easier to use with younger kids, and then the one on the left might be better for older kids, but it really depends on your children and what works with them. But you can start at the beginning. Just ask them a question. What happened? What was your strategy? What were you thinking at the time? So that they can really understand what was going on in their brain as they were working. What happened when you failed? Again, we're not afraid of that word failure. We're teaching them that a failure is something that didn't work right this time. So how are we going to change that process so we can try again? Describe what's been going through your head since then. We can try to get them out of that failure mindset and get them into a growth mindset to think, oh, well, you know, maybe it didn't work, but I'm capable and I'm strong and I can try it again. What have you learned that will help you to do better next time? We're developing the new process. We're helping them understand how to make that new process. What new strategies can you try, or who can you ask for help? Because it's okay to ask for help. What's the new plan? Are we going to develop that now? And how will you deal with thoughts that could keep you from trying? All of those are things that can help us as we get stuck and as we're encountering failure or a challenge with our child. Next slide. Always keep in mind that you are able to learn from your kids as well. I am often astounded by the things that come out of my kids' mouths and realize that in some ways and in many ways, they know better than I do what it's like to have a growth mindset. With this first quote, it may not seem, I mean, we're going to talk about a video game here, right? That's not the ideal. We don't want our kids always playing video games, but I'm going to explain why it's important. And this first quote, I'm going to out my daughter. This is her. She's 19 years old. And she was talking about a game that she really wanted to master. And she was very frustrated in the beginning. And she said, I was really frustrated by my game, but I knew I could do it if I got going. So why is that important? Because now when she feels like she is not able to do something hard, I can point back to that video game and say, yeah, you know, it was difficult for you at that time, but you were able to keep going and you did it. The next quote I wanted to point out is from a boy named Aiden, who is age 16, and he was at a rock climbing wall with his brothers, and they were all attempting to do that rock climbing, and it was really hard for him because he has some spatial perception issues. So he was climbing and very, very hesitant to try it at the beginning, but decided to do it. And his quote is, "Phew, I didn't know I could do that. It was really scary, but I'm glad I did it. Can I try again?" And Aiden tried again and again and again that day. His brothers were sailing up the rock wall. They didn't have any trouble. And he never once was able to climb that wall. He was not able to accomplish that goal, but he left that place knowing that he had tried and tried a different strategy every time and was getting stronger and better. And he intends to go back with his brothers and keep practicing until he gets it. What an incredible example of a mindset, a growth mindset. The next one is from Parker, who is 22. And Parker is in a post-high school program, so he is an adult who's still in public education and was being moved to a different class, and he was really nervous about that. So his quote is, "I'm scared. What if all the kids are smarter than me? What if they don't like me?" But he did it anyway. And after 2 days in the new class, he said, "I love my new class and I am making friends. I'm not scared anymore." The last quote is from a little girl named Jaylyn, who's age 9. Jaylyn has cerebral palsy, and she was getting ready to go out to the bus, and it was a snowy day, and the roads were slick, and she wanted to go by herself. And her mom said, "You know, I'm really nervous about this. I don't want you to go out there, because what if I fall? What if you fall?" And she said to her mom, "If I fall, I can just get back up." What a powerful message from a girl who is willing to, and ready to overcome her challenges to her nervous mom. We really can learn from our kids. think about those examples of growth mindset that they have and share those with them. Let them know that you've paid attention and that you understand and that you're proud of them for having that growth mindset. Next slide, please. So this is what we have today. This is our presentation on growth mindset. There's a lot of information here, many things, and a lot of handouts that you have. We will also be posting this on our YouTube channel so that you can review it at another time. But we hope that you've been able to learn something. We hope that you've been able to pick out one of these areas where you might have that fixed mindset and think about a plan to be able to turn that into a growth mindset, to overcome that challenge for yourself so you can continue to help your children and other people who you may encounter to have that growth mindset. Don't ever hesitate to contact us at the Utah Parent Center. We love to answer your questions, to help you work through your challenges, to help educate you about the special education process. We'd be happy to do that at any point. We also, next slide, please. You can go to the Utah Parent Center website. We have handouts and information on a huge variety of topics, resources for many areas of disability. We also have another organization called Utah Family Voices that can help families to navigate medical concerns or questions with insurance or issues like that. So you can get a hold of them by calling our number at the Utah Parent Center. Thank you so much for participating. We appreciate it so very much. We appreciate all of your questions. If you have any other questions or comments or issues, please don't hesitate to give us a call at the Utah Parent Center. We would love to talk to you about this. And can we have the last slide, please? Everything that we do is at no cost to you. We never charge for our services, our consultations, our workshops. We do, however, accept donations to be able to continue to spread this work throughout the state to everybody who could possibly need it. If you feel so inclined, you can go to our website and provide a donation there. So thank you so very much. We appreciate all of your wonderful comments and contributions to this, and also appreciate you allowing us the chance to present this to you. Thank you very much.
We do have a question from Diana.
Oh, okay.
She wants to know if any of our public schools are teaching these concepts now.
That's a great question, Diana, and I think it really depends on the school. I know that one of my daughter's classes in high school, they really emphasized having a growth mindset and learning from mistakes and not to consider a failure the end, but to keep trying. I don't know that it's a regulated concept, or I don't know that it's a required concept to be taught. I think it just depends on the individual teachers. But I certainly think it would be okay as you're talking to your teams, if you're working, at your IEP, to talk about how you are helping your child to have a growth mindset. So maybe it can put that idea in their heads to think, oh yeah, that might be a good idea, something to talk about.
Great. And then maybe one other question, can you maybe think of a way this could help with potty training?
Oh, that is a great question. Potty training is something, it's funny. My son potty trained himself and did it in about 2 weeks, and my daughter was almost 6 before she was potty trained. So, excuse me, there's such a huge range of when a child is ready and how that can be accomplished. I don't know that I'm an expert other than just going through some of the things that we've talked about, that, if they have a potty accident, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's what happened didn't work. So how can we change our process? How can we help our child to understand what they can do differently next time? Having those conversations with them. I don't know, Leslie, do you have any other ideas for that?
I don't. I actually, with my son, we had a toy that we gave him motivation. So every time he went potty, he got about 10 minutes with this toy. And that was a good motivation for him. I think the good thing is trying to find something that motivates them that they can work towards.
I absolutely agree with that.
There was one great comment. Somebody, let's see, I believe at their school, they have binders that have quotes and information that kids can kind of look through to help kind of foster that growth mindset in them. So I thought that was a great idea.
And I see one other comment here that I think is really insightful. She said that her 17-year-old is currently in a residential treatment facility after a suicide attempt, partly due to depression from feeling like a failure in school, and that nothing will ever get better. And I'm hoping that some of these materials will help me help her and my special needs son who struggles with confidence that he can be successful in school. And I'm glad that that was meaningful to you, that this information has been meaningful, because really in reading this, I'm going to say that before I started learning about a growth mindset, I had that old school idea that intelligence is static, that our IQ is something we're born with and it can't change. And I'm so grateful to know that research has shown that that's not true, that we can learn, that we can develop more intelligence, that we can grow and learn new things. And so I hope that this information really will help you with both of your children, to help them learn that growth mindset and not to feel like a failure, that a failure doesn't mean you are a failure. It means that that way didn't work. So how can we change our process to learn a new way to get the outcome we'd like? And we also have a comment from Tina who said that yes, definitely Utah Family Voices has a protocol to help kids with disabilities work on toilet training. So absolutely, please contact them and they can provide that to you and talk to you about that just a little bit.